Welcome to LMX. Today we're pulling back the curtain on one of South Africa's most controversial and dangerous industries. In a country already riddled with complex social and economic challenges, the taxi industry has become a battleground, not just between rival owners, but between drivers themselves and increasingly with modern ride-hailing services. Stay tuned as we expose the violent tactics, bullying and even outright criminal behavior that are keeping South Africans locked into a system that many argue is a crime against humanity. The taxi industry in South Africa has long been the lifeline for millions of commuters, but behind the scenes, there's a darker story, a tale of fierce competition, entrenched power, and violence. For decades, taxi drivers have operated outside of the full bounds of the law, sometimes clashing violently with rivals, and now with new competitors in the form of e-hailing services. Today we dive into the disturbing trend of intra-taxi violence. How are these drivers turning their control over the roads into a tool of intimidation? And what does it mean when ordinary citizens are caught in the crossfire, discouraged from using safer, more modern alternatives? In recent years, reports have emerged of taxi drivers resorting to acts of violence and intimidation against not only their competitors, but also against everyday commuters. There are alarming accounts of taxi drivers bullying citizens, warning them against using e-hailing services and even going as far as to physically assault those who dare to support these modern alternatives. These aren't isolated incidents. Drivers have been known to block roads, engage in physical altercations, and even illegally impound e-hailing vehicles. The aim? To drive traditional taxi users back into the fold and maintain a stranglehold on an industry that operates by its own brutal rules. Many of these confrontations have escalated into full-blown violence on the streets. Such actions not only disrupt the flow of traffic but put innocent lives at risk. But it's not just about traditional rivalries. Many taxi drivers have been documented actively discouraging citizens from using ride-hailing apps. They use threats, insults, and even physical intimidation to scare off potential customers, and even other drivers. In some cases, e-hailing vehicles have been impounded illegally, effectively halting their operation. These tactics go beyond fair competition. They serve to protect a declining market share and ensure that taxi drivers remain the sole providers of public transport on many routes. When alternative transportation options are blocked through fear and violence, the entire system becomes less safe for everyone. Imagine living in a city where your only way to get a ride is to risk your safety or be coerced into using a service that might not be the best fit for you. That's the harsh reality for many South Africans. When taxi drivers break all the rules, blocking roads, intimidating customers, and engaging in violent disputes, they don't just harm their competitors. The everyday commuter bears the brunt of this chaos. Regular citizens find themselves caught in a cycle of fear and limited choice. Such violence isn't confined to the drivers' disputes. It spills over onto the streets, endangering everyone. The reckless behavior of these drivers has contributed to numerous road accidents, and the intimidation tactics have left many without a safe, reliable means of transportation. When basic road safety is compromised, the entire community suffers, from increased travel times to the real risk of injury or even death. Now we arrive at one of the most controversial questions. Why is the South African government keeping quiet about these crimes? Many critics argue that there is a disturbing disconnect between the state and the realities on the ground. Government officials and their families, living in the relative safety of secure neighborhoods, rarely, if ever, use the public taxi system. Could this be why the voices of the everyday commuter are being ignored? Some contend that the government's inaction isn't due to a lack of awareness, but rather a reluctance to disrupt a system that many in power do not have to rely on. This is safe zone mentality creates a scenario where policies are skewed in favor of those who benefit from the status quo, often at the expense of public safety and fairness. Are we witnessing a case of institutional neglect? Or is there something more insidious at play, a collusion between powerful interests and a legacy system that continues to endanger lives? Throughout South Africa, everyday citizens have been forced to live with the consequences of this unchecked violence. From families stranded in dangerous neighborhoods to e-hailing drivers facing harassment and legal battles over illegally impounded vehicles, the human cost is high. Today I want to give a voice to those who've been silenced by intimidation and fear. If you have experienced or witnessed such violence, if you've felt the sting of bullying for simply choosing what you believe is the safer, more reliable option, please share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters. The taxi industry's brutal practices call for urgent reform, increased regulation, better enforcement of road safety laws, and crucially, a government that listens to its citizens are long overdue. We must ask ourselves, can we allow a system that thrives on violence and fear to continue unchecked? And what role should our government play in protecting us, the everyday people, from such intimidation? Thank you for joining me today on LMX as we shed light on the dark underbelly of South Africa's taxi industry. If you found this investigation insightful, please hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video to spread the word. Let's demand accountability from those in power and work together for a safer, fairer transportation system for all. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.